We're rolling. Welcome to Real Ron Recovered. This is a discussion between me and my brother Will. I'm Bobo. I'm a recovered addict and alcoholic.
I'm Will D, dope fiend.
And also we have as the camera person and also participant, our sister Brittany. We're going to be discussing step 5. And if step 5 is followed with the intention of, the big book says on page 72, it says, having made our personal inventory. So this person that you're about to do this confession with, this admit to God, to ourselves, and another human being with, has their paperwork done. They have followed the instructions of the 4th step, and they're sitting there with it. And it says, having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude. So the person that's doing the 5th step, whom you're doing the 5th step with, should be trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator. They should be interested in a new relationship with their Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. Our obstacle, the root of our troubles, is selfishness and self-centeredness. Most alcoholics don't believe that they're the problem like that. Most addicts don't believe that self, manifested in different ways, have put them in a position to be hurt. And so that's the whole purpose, should be the purpose of the person who has their 4th step ready. But there's some instructions about how to take a person through the 5th step as well. So we'll read some of it and then we'll talk about it. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on some of the weak items in our personal inventory, and now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. You got anything on it? Y'all got anything on up there?
Yeah. First of all, when it says now these are about to be cast out, I don't think they mean immediately. And also understand that now at this stage of my spiritual process too, I'm starting. I bought into the idea, to the reality that the substance I've been using in and of itself is not the problem.
Right. At this particular point, dope and alcohol has been a problem.
Right.
It's not been the problem.
That's the reason I was willing to even do the inventory, because I'm kind of not fully comprehending maybe, but understanding that I'm approaching this from the spirituality standpoint, and my internal condition is my spiritual condition, is where the spirituality is. So I'm trying to look at some internal stuff now.
Mm-hmm. And we know in a vague way at this particular point.
Right.
That's why it says we have put our finger on some of the weak. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. Yeah. Then the trouble has been my attitude, my relationship with my Creator, and the obstacles that self keep putting in my path.
That I don't even know.
That I ain't even aware of.
Right.
But now, in a rough way, I'm familiar with them because I followed the instructions to break down my resentments, my fears, and my sexual behavior.
Right. But rough way.
In a rough way, because a solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. So to imagine that because I wrote the 4th step and I'm willing to admit it to my idea of God, if I don't challenge the fear of admitting it to another person so they can help me more clearly see myself, then a solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. It says that later on down in the next paragraph.
One last point, boy, I want you to speak on this too. See, it's a difference between stating the stuff that's on my written 4th step paperwork as opposed to admitting the exact nature of my defects, accepting I'm defective in these areas, and I admit that to God through confession, to another human being, and to myself. Admitting means I'm accepting.
It's a deflating experience to see that I've not only caused me problems, I've caused other people problems, and me and other people ain't the biggest problem.
Right.
I have not heeded God's voice. I have not represented.
That'd be interesting.
I have not been interested. So next paragraph says, you got something on it, Brittany? Or no? This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. And that's another state of arrogance, lack of humility, and an expression of fear. We don't want to tell nobody where we fall short. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. If you actually want to do this and it actually worked, a solitary self-appraisal won't work. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reason why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they failed. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story.
I was reflecting as you was reading that, how it says in the doctor's opinion, talking about having lost their self-confidence. There's a degree of deflation that I have to start with this thing to actually be seeking God in the way to have this thing
To be able to challenge the fear of being seen as I am.
Absolutely. Now the fifth step in and of itself actually gives me a greater degree of right sizing. Because during this process, I'm able, if I'm actually seeking to see myself as I am, really understanding that I need somebody to help show me. I'm willing to do that in a clearer way. It's going to right size me to the point where God can show me who He is, and then absolutely let me see how small I am and how big He is. That's why this fourth and fifth is necessary.
I just want to make a couple of points. One is multiple times through the steps and with multiple sponsors, you had touched a little bit on it about telling your whole life story, and that it's not just simply your resentments and your sex inventory and your fear inventory. There's a lot more that you need to go through. And in regards to who you go through it with, there's people who their main concern is their relationship with God. And I give that to them. That they care about their relationship with God, but they don't care enough about this program to be giving and caring and compassionate enough to be the person that you come to express yourself.
Absolutely.
They could care less about your program and you coming to God. They think they're good and they're set. And
they may very well be, but they're not useful to you because
they're not going to help you come out.
I mean, because the question is the person that I'm doing my fifth step with willing to meet me where I am without condescendence, without judgment? Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. Another statement that should be brought into play right here at this point is out of working with others. It says that when we have a prospect, we should learn all we can about that person. That if the tables was turned, if the shoe was on the other foot, to see how I would want to be approached. So this is echoing again some of this tell the whole life story, because there's some stuff that you just ain't gonna know about a person simply because you talking to them about what they wrote down. There's a lot of stuff that has a whole lot of meaning and significance that goes into the pot to make a person who they are. I mean, what was their relationship with their mom and daddy? I mean, what's their earliest memory? Were they abused? When did they start having sex? Was it consensual? How they get along with their brothers and sisters? If they had any brothers and sisters. Are they the oldest child? That means something. Middle child? That means something. Are they the baby? Means something. How, what's their relationship with their daddy? It's going to have something to do with their sexual relationship, whether you know it or not. Their relationship with their mom and dad and them. I mean, who was they close to? Did they have issues with the other kids at school? Did they start off firing off on 7 cylinders, being an 8 cylinder. That was my experience, but I didn't know it until I met a chemical that made me feel normal and feel like I'm running on all 8 cylinders. But I had always had the ism.
Yeah.
I had always been restless, irritable, discontent. My explanation was I was just always afraid. I didn't know nothing about nothing. How did they relate to the world? When did they get their first job? When did they start taking care of some responsibilities of their own? When did they first use? When they had a sexual relationship, how long did it last? Was it loose casual sex or was it relationship? How did that break up? All these things will be telling you something about and how they react to life. It's telling you some intimate stuff that's not in the resentment list, that's not on the fear list, and that's not in the sex inventory, that you will be able to more likely, depending on God, grasp words to express to them where they were wrong. How, what it says, and to another human, to express to them the exact nature of their wrong. The exact nature of my wrongs is not only the effect it's had on my life, but the effect it had on other people's life, and the effect it's had on my relationship with God. Who at this particular point, if I'm working this program, I can see that a spiritual awakening is my only hope. The spiritual way of life is not a theory. I must live it. I've been having issues in my mentality. I've been having issues with my body with this phenomenon of craving. Or I've been so delusional to think that because I don't crave, even though alcohol and dope is tearing my life apart, I'm still reasoning to keep it as a crutch.
It's vital.
It's still vital to me. I'm still alcoholic. I'm still drinking alcoholically. I'm still taking some outside substance to be okay. I still don't have God as my solution. But all of this conversation is teaching me and helping me help the person. And many have done 5th steps and never crossed that bridge with nobody. As a matter of fact,
Never.
I have witnessed more people go through a 5th step with somebody and leave there heavy, not having their stuff cast out. Not having their stuff cast out. They felt like they couldn't share such thing with a person. Because, it's easy to get bougie and sedity because you got a couple of years of sobriety. And be looking down your stinky nose because what their symptoms appear to you to be worse than your symptoms was in your addiction.
There's a couple of places earlier in the book that mention the word altruistic. And if you're in the rooms and you're going, you will find those people that have that altruistic way about them, that's selfless, that they're willing to give themselves and not ask for anything in return. And when people in the room say, find the person that has what you want, that's what you need to be looking for, is somebody that's willing to work this program with you because this program worked with you, and they want to genuinely help others come out because
they want to give it back.
The gratitude that they have from being brought out. So, and then I know you will touch on the promises, the 5th step promises that you're supposed to experience.
Right.
If you've gone through this and you've done it to the best of your ability, that is what you should experience.
Right.
Absolutely, man. The people that wrote the book, they wrote their experiences. And so
that's the only reason why the 6 turned into 12. It's because they wrote into the 6 steps of the Oxford group. They wrote in their personal experience along the way of working them steps.
So it gives me some idea of what I should have some expectations, not knowing exactly what it's going to look like for me, but based on their experience, some expectation. And it's real simple.
Yeah, you won't know exactly, but you'll suddenly realize what God is doing for you.
Right. But
I just want to add, because I just thought about what I said, don't be so discriminatory as that you don't choose anybody or use it as an excuse to not go through with it.
Right.
Because your point is to get in touch with God, and He sees your willingness.
She's right. Because the truth is, those who are truly experiencing God through the steps are everywhere. I mean, they're not as plentiful as them fakes, but the real ones are really there. They seem to be the ones that's quiet. They don't do a whole lot of talking and barking and making noise. And you can observe a peace about them and a gentleness about them that's not across the board on everybody's face that's sober, right? They're not bougie, sedity, and condescending. Them the ones that just simply greet you and ask you how you doing. You really know they want to know how you doing and ask you, if you ever want to talk, call me. Them be them. I would try to keep clear the ones that bombard you with their homemade program that don't come out the book.
Well, as she was talking, I was thinking about the person that has experienced God through this process. My experience is this, and I've seen it in others, you, being my own experience. Serving others, it becomes the purpose and the usefulness that I find. I have a new employer now. And so I always now encourage guys to, or anybody, because a lot of people don't know what a sponsor is. The word is not in there, but it's real simple. A person that has gone through this 12-step process has had a spiritual awakening as the result. It means they've had their own spiritual experience where them personally are fully aware for themselves that God is and He is everything, and there is a spiritual realm, and now they are attempting to live practicing living a spiritual life. That's a question. If I had to get a sponsor today, speaking to myself, that's the question I would ask a guy. Well, have you worked out 12 steps? Have you had a spiritual awakening as a result of steps? And tell me about your experience, because if their testimony is this, that God has done something for me that I could not do for myself, it's gonna come across.
What's that other statement? You quoted it. Well, you said it for the most part, and it says our main purpose is to fit ourselves for maximum service to God and the fellows and the people about us. And so we're looking for opportunity because we found God to help introduce people to God through this process.
Absolutely.
And everybody ain't got that on them.
No, but it's something in here that happens, something in this process that happens that I come to realize. I'm grateful for what I realize God has done for me with something I couldn't do for myself, because I went from hopeless of ever being free to being made free. And there's something in me that makes me realize I'm really grateful, but this is not for me. There's a purpose for this.
If you really feel like you've gotten a gift given to you, the side effect of that is share it with the world.
Right.
Because when God done something for you, you don't keep it in secret. No. You hold it up for all to see.
Absolutely.
And then you're interested in sharing what was so freely given to you. And so in the process of doing a fifth step with somebody, admitting to God, ourselves, another human being, and being the person whom they confide their stuff in, the person should be a closed mouth person, is one of the rules that's written down in here. And I think that nowadays, if in fact you have found somebody who took the precise instructions personal, then the other suggestions they had when all they could do was get a book kind of go out the window, because they're really not qualified from a perspective of the ex-problem drinker armed with certain facts about themselves can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a matter of hours. And until this understanding is reached, there's very little that can be done. And so that almost threw the psychiatrist and the counselor and the therapist out the window, because the majority of them ain't strung out, had never been in that hopeless despair pit. But now, not to say that professionals don't have their place. It's just simply to say that there's people who are experiencing liberation and freedom through finding God, through these steps that's out there. And if I'm as hopeless as Bill and them was, if I see the we, if these pages have proven so convincing to me that no further authentication is necessary, then I'm looking for the people who had the same problem. Say, when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but to pick up the spiritual kit, laid at our feet. Okay, so that's who I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who was as bad as me, who was free from being as bad as me. Now, they can hear it, because chances is, it's kind of like when I do a fifth step. I usually let a person know right off, you can't make me blush, bro. You can't make me blush, and ain't nothing you gonna say gonna make me look down at you like you less than. And generally, if I sense spiritually, that in vital sixth sense, that intuitive sense, if I sense that I need to share some of my disgustings with them, I will. You know?
The leading, this man has a real answer. The one who shares stuff about themselves and let the person know that you just quoted it.
About therefore, when we're approached by those in whom the problem
Probably have been
is
solved. Right. And there's another part in there that says that this man has a real answer.
Right.
Part of that is what's attractive to a person who's seeking to be free. And along with that, there's a level of trust, a willing to trust, that's based on, I think this person knows what I've been through, and some tells me that they for real. You know, it gives them
that you know what you're talking about right now.
What's that?
What William Silkworth said. A frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. There's
message.
people who got good intentions and got frothy emotional appeal. They're going to be trying to be appealing to you to do the step work with them. But the message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals,
must be
even
grounded.
those who come into you, must be grounded in the power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. And that seems to be the crutch of the problem as to picking whom I'm going to do this step with.
Exactly. Now, I say this. One reason I'm so glad we're doing this one on the fifth step. It's been so eye-opening to me. This go around working with you, doing fifth steps, and miss something real simple that's in the book until they told someone else all their life story. That's it. I missed that. Because I'm learning now that, see, we were taught, and we taught about people who had good intent and gave us the best they had. It was very superficial. I didn't see it until I started doing them with you now. We just went down the paper. And it did have benefit, don't get me wrong.
It definitely wasn't worthless, but there is nothing like walking a man through his life. There's nothing like it. He is also, at that moment, bringing to his remembrance all this is coming to the top now. You digging down in there for him. You helping him bring the stuff out. You kind of semi-narrating, pointing him where you want him to go to tell his story. He's telling his story himself, but you asking questions about little steps along the way. And then at a certain point, when you finally through telling your whole story, bringing you all the way up to why are we sitting in each other's presence right now? How did you make it all the way here now to this fifth step? Now, when you have a comment about one of them things on the resentment list, or one of them things in the fears, or one of them things according to the sex behavior, then now it has more oomph to it because now he has, you know, he's very resentful. So, and a resentment ain't just anger, it's a resent emotion. So now he's feeling again. Not only feeling some of the anger as to what happened to him, but he's also feeling some of the guilt and shame, remorse as to what he's done. And so now there's a chance that in humility, because doing this right, they're going to learn, they're going to lose their egoism and fear. They're going to humble themselves. They're going to learn enough of fearlessness, honesty, and humility in the sense we find it necessary in this encounter if it's full. And if it's not full, they'll still have an overabundant amount of fear, an overabundant amount of dishonesty, because at this particular point, what I've only written to the extent of the honesty I have at that point. I only know in a vague way. So I'm as honest as I could be at the time of writing it, but I ain't really tapped into no real honesty until in the presence of God and another person. Fear. I think that as humans, we'll always have some apprehensiveness about letting people know intimate stuff about where we fall short. Because in our own judgment, that makes us less than them.
I feel that if
and so I'm afraid,
judging myself.
I'm afraid to expose me as I am. I learned a lot about transparency through my fifth steps. And you're right, a lot of people just jump right to the list and hadn't taken me through my life story. I mean, had they had any genuine concern for getting me free, then it seems to me like that would be something you can't exclude, especially if the person has lived a nice amount of life. Life be lifing. If you've lived enough life where you can track that back, you can see the accumulation of the resentments. You can see the accumulation of the do-it-yourself. You can see the accumulation of know-it-allism. You can see all kinds of stuff. You can see where you have came up with your own beliefs to protect and co-sign your mess and all kind of stuff in this confession or admitting to God Himself another human being.
I think one of the impacts of it too is that, see, the person that's going through the process, the only way they've been able to live, all they've practiced up to this point is what they've been practicing that's built resentment and fear, dishonesty, being judgmental. So they're thinking to a great degree, like you said, one of the things that keeps them from being totally transparent, they think people think like they think. Like you say, they judging themselves by themselves. And I think what's one of the profound things that's why I know you've experienced this too, why the relationship between the person that's doing the fifth step and the person they do it with, after that point, even though they're their sponsor, a lot of times the relationship solidifies in a way where they become
you
friends.
now know that you have somebody you can tell everything to.
Right.
And you may have lived your whole life without that.
Right. There's an ability where they see it was safe. And it's not like, see, people that's in the clinical field, they're trained to be objective and this, that, and other. They're taught how to posture themselves. But it's so genuine.
They're taught also in that field of work how to be callous and unaffected.
Right.
Really on the cool, not really that concerned.
Right.
You get it if you get it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's really not a whole lot of heart put into it.
Absolutely.
And rightfully so.
Right.
They see so much. What they have not seen is that what they have don't work.
Because
that's a lot of them hadn't seen that. They feel like if people just do what they tell them to do, they would get it. And if they don't do it, they fall victim too, because they part of the bigger whole of them is part of the people who don't understand.
There's an empathy that they cannot possess.
They can't manufacture the empathy.
That's what I'm talking about.
Of the one
it's manufactured.
You can't
and ours is so genuine, the other person can
pick it up.
That's
Yes,
spiritual too. You had something?
Next paragraph, page 73. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. And it echoes right back to some of the stuff we're saying. If a person don't tell you his whole life story, he's very practiced at leading the double life and being an actor and presenting his stage character and the one he'd like you to believe about him. I don't know how many fifth steps I've sat in, and the person was still trying to minimize what they had done and the effect they had on other people, or blatantly. I remember I sat in one fifth step with a guy, and he was talking about, he had hurt his wife, and his explanation of how he had hurt her, he says, well, I used to go to the strip bar, but I never slept with nobody. I said, you shoulda, because far as she concerned, you did. You can't minimize the hurt.
Right.
That it caused her.
Out of your selfish.
What you was doing. And many other ways a person, if that's not truly laying themselves out, haven't told their whole story, and then going through the written down inventory, many times they're going to try to protect and shield themselves. I'm practiced at being an actor. I'm practiced at leading a double life. I'm practiced at presenting to you what I want you to think about me. So
you know what we be most practicing? Well, actually, what we live in, and we don't even realize it. We have a distorted perception of reality because it's all our own.
Yeah, all by myself. And another thing, at this particular stage of going through the steps, and we're trying to do them right, I may very well realize how much my feelings have been my God. Because the threat of not doing this right is the feeling of fear. The threat of not doing this right is the feeling of the fear of being judged, ridiculed, condescended. You know, the fear of somebody else finding out because you can't keep your mouth closed. And so these are all feelings that tends to veer us from the path.
We willing to go so far, but no farther.
Yeah. I remember one fifth step we done, and the guy told us we ain't do it right.
After.
Now, this is the only time in my whole life in recovery where a dude showed up with his 4-step on the laptop. He was so brilliant. He was so smart. He was so away from the spiritual experience. He did not write it. He had typed it. He kept on analoging, and I mean, he was doing so much other than being there with us to do the 5th step to cast it out.
It was part of the to-do list, and
he retained even afterwards a superiority over us. I know what to do. See, far as he was concerned, through his clouded lenses, he didn't see us as those whom the problem had been solved and picked up the spiritual kit, laid at his feet. He still the whole time had ideas about how this should go the way he think it should go, and therefore missed the whole point of how it was supposed to go.
Right.
Well,
We would go ahead.
I just know when I went through my first 5th step, when I finally got to the point where I was willing to even do the 4th step and the 5th step, there was an introduction to God. And I had some of those, 5th step promises, but the focus was not ever put on depending on God and how to go from there. And you talked about, becoming aware that your feelings are your God, and so I did. After that pink cloud and everything faded, I was still left with this same old person. And so although it was a really good experience that I got something solid out of it, it was not sufficient to keep me. And I think that is a problem that arises a lot today is, what do you do after this stuff? How do you keep that same? And the focus always being to go back to God and depending on Him and not your feelings and not your thinking.
I think that would lead over into a conversation about step 10, 11, and 12 too. Because a lot of us come into the step work with an idea of one and done. Like there's a graduation or a diploma or a finish line, rather than adopting this as a way of life. I should continue to look for fear, resentment, anger, and fear. Dishonesty and fear. And these will crop back up. And I should ask God, admit to God, at once to remove them, talk to somebody, make amends quickly. So there's a process of continuing to grow and seek God for the relief of being human and falling short that a lot of us never heard before.
It's presented as
you do it, then it's done.
And I was just going to say, I was thinking about the example you gave, and actually we see this more than I even realized, where people have their own ideas about what the 12 steps are about because they still are the director. And so the 12 steps is a to-do list, and the people that they're involved with, say us doing their 5th step, we're just props in their show. Because they're not
they're still the arbiter of their spiritual health.
Right.
They're still not genuinely interested in the spiritual experience from God. They're interested in how much better they feel if they just do the cross the T's, dot the I's, the check box. Well, I did mine. Almost every time I hear it come out somebody's mouth, well, I worked past tense, the steps.
You missing the point.
You ain't still working them.
Right.
Every day you ain't saw somewhere else. You still powerless and have no ability to manage. You ain't continued to see that I can't, he can, and I gotta let him. You won't continuously turn your will and life over. life ain't keep happening to you. I mean, you ain't had no specific and particular issues that you had to specifically put on paper that one episode so you could see your part, break it down, and then go to somebody and get a glimpse from them. You know you can always see the good move on the chessboard being an onlooker than being on the game playing. You can't see your back. Somebody else can. And you didn't do that? And okay, so that's what that would lead into. A lot of people who push the step work as a to-do list. We just need to get this done, and it's kind of left to think that it's a one and done. But 10, 11, and 12 includes everything from 1 through 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
And it's all part of trying to get a new attitude and a new relationship with our Creator, because I need that. I may not know what it looks like. I may not even.
I think some people fall short and just simply think that they can come out of it with a new attitude without getting a new relationship with their Creator.
Right.
Or maybe they just, because they're superior in their own eyes and it's just a to-do list, they're self-helping, think that I'll just discover the obstacles in my path and I just won't do them no more.
I'll be better.
Thanks for the information.
We run into that a lot. So I guess what we're trying to say is and reinforce that this is a spiritual process. It's a God-seeking process, because this is a God help me please program of recovery.
Yep. Reason more?
Yes, sir. So I want to get to the promises before we go. How much time we got?
Do y'all want to do a part 1 and part 2?
No, we got 25 minutes if we go all the way till 8:15. That'll give us the hour on there.
Sounds good.
Okay.
The inconsistencies is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chances for recovery. Another point right there is you can't run the common dope fiend alcoholic game on the dope fiend alcoholic, where you can pop it and get away. You're going to get empathy in places you wasn't supposed to be empathized with from a psychiatrist, doctor, counselor. And you're going to get co-signed on your feelings when we're trying to get over our feelings. You know, they'll continue to, because they don't know no better, validate some of the stuff you're supposed to be repentant of. I was going to say shame, but not necessarily shame as much as it was wrong and I should feel it. You know?
The reality, though, is that guilt and shame is a factor that needs to be addressed. We tell guys all the time, even if you're not interested in working the 12 steps, I tell you this, if you in treatment and you go and be an abstinent, there are things that's inside of you that you got guilt, shame, and remorse about that affects your internal condition. And if that is never dealt with, you may not drink no more, but you're going to have some other symptoms. It's something going to pop up.
I mean, but this seems like everybody with any kind of emotional symptom is so okay with going to get some psych meds nowadays. It don't make no sense.
Right.
I mean, the majority of our existence has been without psych meds. Now, almost everybody you think of is eating them.
It's a way, if they've introduced it as a way of a life, and especially here in America.
So you just take this and you'll feel.
Well, and the point I was making about the guilt and shame, stuff that I should be repenting for, the necessity, even if my goal, I don't think I need God, if my goal is just to stop drinking and drugging, my internal condition is my spiritual condition. And those things that I've participated in, that I've gotten, that I am aware of, not the stuff I forgot, the stuff I know about,
right?
That to this day may haunt me, if that is never addressed and resolved. Now, this process is designed to directly deal with that. But even if I don't want to go this route, just to let you know, if that's not dealt with, you gonna have symptoms, drinking, drugging, psych, something, because you ain't dealing with just the minimal of
Right.
what's going on with you. Let alone trying to get a better relationship, a better attitude with your creator.
It takes a belief. You've got people sitting here telling you that this works. And we all, I think all three of us at least had to come to a place where in the beginning, at least we knew that what we were doing wasn't working.
Right.
Right, at least.
And I have to believe in something, so let me just try this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And see. And yeah, it at least takes that much.
Right.
I'm gonna get some more red.
Good.
We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this
Man,
world.
you ought to read that again. People miss
We
that.
ought to be honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons. You never caught that. Persons.
I know now.
Yeah, with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to recover it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. Most time you've run into people who do not understand alcoholics because they ain't alcoholic.
Right.
And old Reverend Shuck and Shuck, he might not be the one.
No, I understand. Been there.
If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed-mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed. Only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve of what we are driving at, and that he will not try to change our plan. But we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. See, it's still not talking about what I wrote down. It's hear my story. We have written the inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we're about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approaching this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence.
Let's stop there for a minute.
Okay.
This goes to the part where when they first start distributing this book, there were only two AA
Yeah.
fellowships.
Akron, Ohio, and New York City.
Right. So a person would write in to the what do you call the home office, central office.
They would basically write Bill to Bob them because they had begun to get popularity through some magazines and stuff like that.
Right.
And they would basically write them and send the money for the book.
Right. And so a person is somewhere else other than where an established group is, and they would follow the precise instructions in this book. And I see this right here is like geared toward that person.
It's geared towards that time where
Right.
there was no groups to
Right.
go to.
Right. Now,
There were no abundance of recovered alcoholics
Right.
and addicts.
Right.
You're right.
but today,
It's not
That's
like
not the
that.
case.
That's not the
it's
case
not
today.
the case. You have people available who,
There are some people who have, because AA didn't got so far away from its own book, but there has been like a revolution or a revival, so to speak, concerning getting back to the basics. You had Primary Purpose out in Dallas, went back to line by line, and from there spawned other groups that used the big book and the precise instructions and got away from the discussion meetings and anybody and their mama can hang out and talk anything they want. They got away from that. I'm talking about groups different than AA, because AA is big and popular and bloated with folks that really ain't us.
It ties into what was said on the step one
Mm-hmm.
video that y'all made about, and it was a revelation when I first heard it, and it made so much sense about, we have a lot of real alcoholics going to non-alcoholics trying to figure out why we can't get
Why
it.
we can't get
Well,
it.
because you're going to a non-alcoholic who doesn't have the same thing
Issue.
that you
And don't have the need for the same solution.
Right.
You're right. And so there has been a lot of groups that spawn during this, I'm calling it a revival or revolution, but it's a return to the basics. So you got Drug Addicts Anonymous is going to come out the book. CA going to come out the book. DAA, I said them first.
Oh, okay.
Methamphetamine Addicts Anonymous, Heroin Addicts Anonymous, you know, so there's been some, not to mention there is a breed of those in the fellowship of AA who's been trying to put some things back on straight street, like Primary Purpose. I'm sure they're not the only one. And to think that people are so offended when you tell the truth about the stats, that during the time where we followed the precise instructions of the big book, the 91% success rate versus the less than 5% today, you're not bad-mouthing no specific or particular group. That's a bad mouth to any group that don't follow the precise instructions as outlined in the book. There's where the success is. The success is in doing what the book said, to have your own spiritual experience. And anything less than that, it's a shame to be caught up in that, because the real alcoholic can find himself coming back, but coming back drunk. Steady reestablishing and getting handled bad by those who should have understood. Our very own room ain't even for us no more, to tell the truth. Because anybody with a desire to stop drinking is welcome. Well, how about anybody with a desire to drink and found out they can't? Let that be the rule. Anybody who done been to multiple treatment centers and it ain't worked, let that be the rule. Anybody who find that they had the most powerful desire to stop drinking and it was of absolutely no avail. And the tragic situation has arrived in most every case long before it's ever suspected. You know, but
Well, that's one of the main reasons that we've been commissioned to do what we do. One of the reasons we're making this video, Eva, to try to let people know that, specifically talking about this fifth step, it's a very intimate and confidential step. I'm going to straight out the book, but we see and understand the problem. Okay? Also, we know you engaged upon a life and death era.
we know.
And we're
from personal
glad to
experience.
help and are honored by your confidence. See, we are the same people who have gone through this process, who identify with the people that wrote it, that hopefully a person that would honor me with doing their fifth step with them sees that I think you like me. I think I'm like you. And you made it out.
Yeah.
So let me try what you've got. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there are some people with real answers. Our experience is that over a long period of time, we've experienced, or we haven't experienced, liberation in mainstream.
Right.
So now, based on our experience with being made free by following the precise instruction, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we carry the message. We have the message to carry that God could and God can and will, because He has. See what I'm saying? There's a difference.
I think, and we're going to go ahead and read the rest of it so we can chit chat on it. But I think that the dangers of working the steps with a person who really who really is an alcoholic is probably the biggest threat waiting on a person in the regular rooms. And not only that, I have recently realized that there's another threat that we might not so clearly see. The people who are below that 5% that was able to get it in a room so full of stuff other than the big book, they seem to not be pointing people towards a spiritual experience either.
No.
I'm talking about they may very well be a real alcoholic.
They've been muzzled.
But what they've collected over the years, they happen to be a survivor of something that most of us won't survive.
Right.
And for me to be the real deal and you to be simply one of the very minuscule amount of people who survived that mess, your message ain't gonna have depth and weight. Your message gonna be tainted with a whole bunch of cliche. Just keep coming back. Fake it till you make it. Don't leave for the miracle happen. Put the plug in the jug. Don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Just do the 5 alive. It ain't gonna be a direct plea with you to search for experience with God himself through the process. It's gonna be a whole lot of to-do list stuff. They happen to survive it. Thank God they did. But they happen to survive it, and therefore their message is wet and watered down too. I've met a lot of them. I've met a lot of them recently, and I don't knock them, nor do I say they have nothing. I'm just saying, if I find myself as being confirmed as the real deal, I've been baffling myself. I have had the strange mental blank spots. I've had the mental twists. I've had the crying on the way to the dope house, crying on the way to the bar. I'd have had the multiple trips up there to reestablish. And I might consider at that particular point that I really hadn't followed this book. Because if you listen to a lot of them cliches, ain't none of them in the book.
Not a
Ain't none of them in the book.
That wasn't in the book. That was
Meat
something.
Makers Make It.
Yeah.
It's 90 and
Yeah,
90.
that's not in the book.
Them ain't bad
The
suggestions.
sponsors with
Put the plug in the
push-ups
jug.
and the spot, I don't understand. The
They
push-ups
then
and
gave
all.
themselves, they wrote themselves a right to not help you.
Yeah.
Let's
You
get
don't
the
do what
rest
I
of this
need you to
read.
do.
Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be I'm not
No,
over
we
that.
pocket our pride.
We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. There it again, that life story. Once we have taken this step withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience, our own experience with the Creator. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. I even suggest that after doing the 5th step with somebody, that they go back over them first 5 steps. And a lot of times, a lot of them remember something they didn't write down, remember something they didn't share. I remember some stuff that I didn't share and got right on it. Find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps, carefully reading the first 5 proposals. We ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an ark through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand?
That's it. That's it right there. What I want to highlight what it says here in the very beginning of the promises. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, because this is what it said up here, an intimate. It said an intimate. Oh man, I read it earlier. This intimate and revealing step. Anyway, there's a level of courage, because no one knows going in what to expect in this process. Yeah. I'm hoping it works, but I got to be willing to go
face the discomfort.
Give it my
A full
all,
shot.
really.
Yeah, I
right.
gotta give it. I gotta
right.
pay it all. Put it all
like,
out there.
Okay, because the little bit of hope I got, I got to take hold of that. Okay, I'm going in.
I'm giving it all I got. It's my last shot. It's a life and death.
It's a life. I see it as that.
I think. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
The point really to not miss at all is and I'm pretty sure it says it in the book, is the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness is the basis of what are you willing
Are you
You know,
willing to
are
lay
you
it all
honest
out?
enough?
Yeah, to tell
Are
it
you
all.
open-minded enough to accept some new ideas? And if you can start there, you know, you might be on your way.
I like to say some stuff right now about some of the stuff that's commonly withheld. Being molested, in addiction, doing homosexual acts for drugs and alcohol, stealing stuff, the way the child that was under your care while you was in your addiction to alcoholism was abused or neglected. Different acts that we might participate in that happen to be different than our upbringing. It's very humiliating since we was raised better and taught better. And these be some of the things that we are ashamed to talk about, or some of the things that we did that were against the law, that may very well not have a statute of limitations. And so it's important that I am indeed talking to somebody that's a closed mouth friend, and also, but I still, because I got to tell it all.
Right. At some point, you see that it's not so much. I know for me this last time, it wasn't so much I was considering withholding anything. It was that I got to get this out.
I got to get it out.
I saw the necessity for me to get it out, and to a point, to hell with the
They
consequences.
said it. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world.
Right.
And a lot of us have retained our misery because we've retained our fear of divulging our whole self.
Well, I think holding on to it is a way to not look at it.
That too.
When you get it out,
That
get
too.
it out and you look at it.
That
for a
too.
minute.
That would be attached to the leading a double life, being an actor, and presenting to the outer world his stage character.
Now, and now, don't get it twisted. We understand because we experience ourselves. There is a lot of fear attached to being that vulnerable and being that transparent. Even if, especially because if I had no practice in that.
Yeah, if I've been lying my whole life, now
Bruh.
you're telling me to tell it all.
Right.
You know.
But here's what, and this has to be established from the very beginning. I am so desperately running from what I know is gonna catch me with this alcohol and drug deal, because see, now I know that I am of the hopeless variety, that I'm gonna do this.
You're right.
I'm gonna get high against
You
my
have
will.
the gift of desperation. It's
Absolutely.
been revealed to you that you are the we of the book.
Right.
You.
I suffer
what
from
it says,
alcoholism. I got the ism.
Because it says our chapter to what it says the chapter to our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A, that I'm alcoholic and cannot manage my own life. B, that no human power, that includes doctors and treatment centers and all that, no human power could relieve my alcoholism, that God could and would if he was sought. And we're talking about turning our will and life over, and it said the first thing I got to pass through is to be convinced that any life run by myself is going to fail. Any life run on self can hardly be a success. That's a hard one to swallow. See, if I ain't convinced of that, not going with the step work, I might be puzzled why it don't work.
And point out that the gift of desperation cannot be your God, and that it is temporary.
And yeah,
If
the
you
gift
do
of
not act
desperation
on it,
will go away.
It will fade, and you will be right back in the middle of your shit.
Yeah.
Well, there's a truth that I have to start with that is not even apparent that I'm on a God help me please errand consciously. I think I had a friend of mine who said all the time, we don't change because we see the light, but we feel the heat. It's because if my truth is, I know I have no hope of staying stopped. See, that propels me into this action. Now, quickly, when I start with this process, it's telling me now we not just now. You say you want you know you're gonna do that again, and you don't want to do that no more. But we not just that's your motivating factor to get you running
get
this
you
way.
started.
But now we're gonna point you to the problem, not just the apparent.
The firm
issue.
resolution won't hold.
Right. So we're pointing you into a different direction, starting with self and self-centered. letting you know, okay, now we going on a spiritual journey, but we're gonna start looking at you first, so that you can properly see yourself, so that God can illuminate who He is to you. So some of the things that I'm looking for, because it says when it starts with this step, I'm trying to get a new attitude and a new relationship with my Creator. I may never have had a relationship with my Creator at all.
Or you think you had a relationship. I don't know how many religious people I met can't stay sober.
And I tell them, I don't discount that you have a relationship, but obviously it's
Trash.
It's
obviously trash.
It's insufficient.
It's not what you believe. It's how you believe. So you've been you've been having many spiritual beliefs, but now you're gonna have a spiritual experience.
That's what you insufficient.
It's insufficient. It's trash. I mean, what you talking about, God? It ain't done nothing for you. Then it's trash.
Okay.
I mean, listen. If you on your back, bro, I say this all the time. You on your back. What's sacred?
Ain't nothing sacred.
You got to take a
Everything
look
up
at
for
that.
review.
You got to take a look at that stuff you calling God. Because if it was really Him, nobody left Him the same.
Right. And the relationship you got, it ain't trash on his end. It's on your end.
It's you.
Okay, hold on. There it is right there, real and raw.
Oh, you are.
Now here's the last thing I'm gonna say. A few minutes. Here's some expectations or something you should be looking forward to or desiring. I should be delighted when I've done this. I'm looking to feel okay enough in my own skin to look the world in the eye. I'm trying to anticipate. This is the goal. I want to have peace, perfect peace, and a sense of ease. I want all these fears to fall away. See, this process all along the
That
way.
process gave you a direct blow to the self-life, which selfishness and self-centeredness has been the root of your trouble.
Right.
To expose self is to let light shine on self and the darkness of self recede. You should feel like your problem solved, really, in the relinquishing of clinging to your dark spots.
Right.
It should.
And you should feel a nearness to your
Nearness
Creator.
to your Creator.
And you should have a spiritual experience.
At least in the now.
In the now, yeah.
Right? Now, maintaining it's a totally different story.
Right. But there are some definite
signs of it having went right.
right.
And it
'Cause-
propels you to move forward.
Absolutely.
Yes.
On with
Absolutely.
Let's get on with it. He done removed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he's doing. I now I'm starting to some degree sense that something's happening to me.
Right.
May not understand it, but something's happening to me. Okay.
That's a wrap. Y'all good? Any last comments?
Tell them.
So we're at 2912 West Pafford, Fort Worth, Texas, 76116. We have about 5 meetings a week. If you're ever in the area, you can look me up. You can look us up on Facebook, Real Raw and Recovered. You can look us up on the meeting app, 12-step meeting app, Real Raw and Recovered. YouTube channel, Real Raw and Recovered. What else?
I think that's it for now.
That's it.
Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Look forward to seeing you guys.